Welcome back to Two in a Pew, our CMAfest editions. My guest today is way too big, way too iconic, way too important to the crosshairs of faith and creativity to fit onto this set or to fit into a pew for that matter. In fact, this guest has pews of its own. I'm talking about my invisible guest today, the Ryman Auditorium. The Ryman Auditorium is one of the most iconic music venues in the world. It's synonymous with Nashville for many people, with country music for many people, and with music venues in general. One of the first things you think about is the Ryman. It's a holy space. It's an important space for music and for acts of all kinds. And it's right here in the heart of Nashville, Tennessee. It's known as the Mother Church of Country Music, and it has hosted acts like comedy, theater, but of course, music with all types of genres, from gospel to country to Americana and rock, all types of genres, you name it. It's graced the stages of the Ryman Auditorium. And it all got started with one man, Thomas Ryman. Back in 1885, Thomas Ryman was known as a big-wig businessman here in Nashville, Tennessee. He owned many shipping and boating companies here in the city. He was also known as kind of a party animal, which is not uncommon for Nashville, Tennessee to this day. When you're down on Broadway, it is Party City, so much fun down there, and he enjoyed all of it at that time. He and a friend made their way over to a tent revival going on just out of curiosity back in 1885. They showed up to a tent revival that was going on downtown run by Reverend Sam Jones, who was known to preach to thousands of people very often down in the streets of Nashville. So Thomas and his buddy went down there to one of the tent revivals just to check it out and see what was going on. And the story goes that his heart was changed. It was turned, and he was just so inspired by the preaching and the worshiping he was hearing in that tent revival that he couldn't help himself. A dream and a spark of creativity was born. From that dream, he raised money and envisioned a great big space that could house all the different types of people that were going to these tent revivals, but indoors, protected from the weather, a space where all are welcome to come and worship and host church together, a place of faith, a place of creativity, a place of fellowship and gathering. He raised the money, and it was opened as the Union Tabernacle. Well, it was a big success, and it went on for years. The name, the Union Tabernacle, was actually changed to the Ryman after Thomas Ryman's passing in 1904. He passed away just before Christmas, the story goes, and they honored him with changing the name to the Ryman Auditorium. The Ryman Auditorium, as we mentioned earlier, was known not just for practicing faith and worship and church services, but it grew to start to house different types of entertainment acts coming through. One of the most notable people that actually helped make this shift and change to that space and to help use this space for all kinds of gatherings, not just faith gatherings, but also creativity gatherings and entertainment gatherings, was Lula Naff. She was an independent artist and entertainment manager and independent booker. She started bringing acts into the Ryman like Charlie Chaplin and Houdini, all these really amazing people that we know all throughout history. Katharine Hepburn. She was known to make pretty brave choices with the people that she would bring to grace the stages of the Ryman, which is really pretty cool, especially as a woman in business back in those times. She definitely had an independent spirit and a dream of her own to house more sensationalized acts right on the stages of the Ryman. She is also the one who can be pinpointed to and looked to as the one who brought the Grand Ole Opry to the stages of the Ryman. That was in 1943, which is so cool because we all know today the Ryman Auditorium pretty much goes hand in hand with Grand Ole Opry. Most people call it the Grand Ole Opry, whether they know it or not. It's actually the Ryman. The Grand Ole Opry is separate, but they were housed together. So the Opry moved off of the stages of the Ryman in 1974, but to this day, it is still part of the Ryman's lineup certain times of the year, and the Ryman has still just made its history and carved out its little space in music venue history as one of the most iconic, one of the most holy spaces, and one of the most beautiful places to gather, to listen to music, and to just dive in and experience the best of creativity, of music, of arts, and still to this day of faith. Why is this important? It's so important when we think about these little pinpoints of history where just a spark of creativity, just a little dream, an inspiration really that tugs on someone's heart, turns and grows into something that can touch thousands, and now with the Ryman, in that case, millions. It's so inspiring to me personally as one of the many people who moved to this town chasing a dream and diving into creativity. Chasing a dream really requires brave steps. It requires acting on inspirations and vision and being brave enough to say, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to try. And that's just what Thomas Ryman did when he heard that first worship in the tent revival back in 1885. He had a dream. He acted on it. I find that so inspiring and so encouraging, whether it is creating a memory with your family, whether it's creating a recipe in your kitchen or a new tradition with your friends and your family, whether it's a piece of artwork or a walk in the woods, whatever way that you connect with your faith, that you connect with your creativity, paying attention, staying connected internally, externally, knowing where your heart lies, and being in tune enough to actually be able to pay attention to those sparks and those stirs of inspiration. I hope that you can feel encouraged when you hear this story about the Ryman Auditorium, hear the story about Thomas Ryman and Lula and the ways that they created something incredible out of just an idea, that wherever you are and whatever space you're in your life, in your family, in your community, that you feel those tugs of inspiration, that you pay attention to your intuition, and that you actively foster those moments and those sparks inside yourself to take brave steps, act on them. You never know where one little idea might take you and who you might touch the heart of just by one tug of your own. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode on the Ryman Auditorium, one of my favorite places to be. If you are ever in Nashville, Tennessee, you have to check it out. It's one of the top 10, I'd say top 2, I'd say maybe even top 1 thing to do while you're in Nashville, Tennessee. It truly is an iconic and holy space, and I'm honored to talk about it as my invisible guest today. Make sure you check us out here on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, all the places. Follow us, subscribe, share with your friends, and as always, chase those sparks of creativity in your life.